last thing I remembered before everything went black was the screech of tires and the blinding glare of headlights. Now I was standing in the middle of a forest I'd never seen before, surrounded by wolves the size of small cars, and every single one of them was staring at me like I was either prey or something far more dangerous. This has to be a nightmare, but the pine scent cutting through the air felt too sharp. The cold earth beneath my bare feet felt too real. And the low, rumbling growl coming from the massive gray wolf directly in front of me, that sent ice straight down my spine. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Because here's the thing about me. I've been terrified of dogs since I was 6 years old. And now, apparently, I was one of them. My name is Min Junha, 23 years old, college dropout, part-time barista in Portland, Oregon. My life wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. Safe, predictable, until last night. I don't remember dying. I don't even remember what I was doing before the accident, but I remember waking up in this body with memories that weren't mine flooding my brain like someone had dumped a bucket of ice water over my head. Wolf shifter, omega, pack dynamics, heats, bonds. It was like someone had shoved me into the middle of a fantasy novel I never asked to read, except this time I couldn't close the book and walk away. The worst part? This body, this Junha, the one whose life I'd apparently stolen, had been a Wolf Omega in something called the Silver Crest Pack. A pack that, according to the fragmented memories still buzzing in my head, had kicked him out 3 days ago for being too weak. Too weak to shift properly, too weak to defend himself, too weak to be worth keeping. And now here I was, standing in the middle of their territory again, because apparently my body had stumbled back here on instinct while my human brain was still trying to catch up. The gray wolf in front of me shifted, not like a movie, not smooth or magical or beautiful. It was brutal. Bones cracked and reformed with sickening pops. Fur melted back into bronze skin. Claws retracted into blunt human fingers. Within seconds, a man stood where the wolf had been, completely naked and completely unbothered by it. He was tall, broad-shouldered. His dark eyes were cold enough to freeze blood. "You've got some nerve coming back here," he said, his voice low and dangerous. I took a step back. My legs were shaking so hard I thought I might collapse. "I didn't mean to," I said, and my voice came out hoarse, broken. "I just woke up here. I don't even know how I got here." The man tilted his head, studying me, like I was something he couldn't quite figure out. "You're not acting like yourself." Because I'm not myself. But I couldn't say that. I couldn't explain that I was some guy from another world who'd somehow ended up trapped in the body of a Wolf Omega in a pack that had already thrown him away once. So I did the only thing I could think of. I ran. I didn't get far. A hand clamped down on my wrist and yanked me backward so hard I stumbled and hit the ground. Pain shot through my knees, and I bit down on my lip to keep from crying out. "Don't run from me," the man said, crouching down in front of me. His grip on my wrist was ironclad. "You know what happens when prey runs." I'm not prey. But my body didn't believe me. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. My hands were trembling. And worst of all, I could feel something deep inside me. Something primal and instinctive, urging me to submit. No, absolutely not. I yanked my hand back, hard enough that his grip loosened for just a second. That was all I needed. I scrambled to my feet and put as much distance between us as I could without actually running again. "Stay back," I said, and I hated how weak I sounded. "I'm leaving. I won't come. Back. Just let me go." The man stood slowly, and for the first time, something like amusement flickered across his face. "You really think it's that simple?" "It should be," I shot back. "You kicked me out. I'm gone. What more do you want?" "You're still bonded to this pack," he said, and the amusement vanished. "You can't just walk away from that." Bonded? I didn't know what that meant. The memories in my head were jumbled, incomplete. I could feel the edges of something important, but every time I tried to focus on it, it slipped away like smoke. "I don't care about bonds," I said. "I just want to leave." "Too bad." The man stepped closer, and I flinched. He noticed. His eyes narrowed. "You really are different." Before I could respond, another voice cut through the clearing. "Dae-hyun, step back." I turned, and my breath caught. 3 men stood at the edge of the trees, all of them watching me with varying degrees of interest. The one who'd spoken was tall and lean, with sharp features and dark hair that fell into his eyes. He moved with the kind of grace that made it clear he was dangerous even when he wasn't trying to be. The second man was broader, with a scar running down the left side of his face. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes were locked on me like he was trying to figure out a puzzle. The third was younger, maybe close to my age. He had softer features, lighter hair, and eyes that seemed almost kind compared to the others. But all three of them had the same thing in common. They smelled like power, like dominance, like everything my Omega instincts were screaming at me to either submit to or run from. Alphas. And, judging by the way Dae-hyun stepped aside without argument, they weren't just any alphas. They were the ones in charge. The lean one with the sharp features stepped forward, his gaze never leaving mine. "Junha," he said, and his voice was smooth, controlled. "You shouldn't be here." "I know," I said. "I'm leaving." "Not yet." "Why not?" He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Because we need to talk about why you smell like fear instead of submission." My stomach dropped. They can smell it. Of course they could. This was a world where scent meant everything, where emotions bled through your skin and into the air around you. And right now, I reeked of terror. "I don't owe you an explanation," I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. "You threw me out. That means I'm not your problem anymore." The man with the scar spoke for the first time. His voice was rougher, deeper. "You were never not our problem." "What's that supposed to mean?" The younger alpha stepped forward, his expression softer but no less intense. "It means you're still ours, Junha, whether you like it or not." And just like that, I realized I wasn't getting out of here anytime soon. Tomorrow, I'll learn why they really cast me out, and why they're suddenly so desperate to keep me close. I took a step back, then another, until my spine hit bark. The younger alpha's words hung in the air like smoke I couldn't escape. "Still ours." "I'm not anyone's," I said, and my voice came out sharper than I intended. "You made that clear when you kicked me out." The lean one, the one who'd told Dae-hyun to step back, tilted his head. His dark eyes tracked every micro-movement I made like he was cataloging my fear for later use. "My name is Kang Minho," he said, smooth as silk. "Alpha of Silver Crest. And you're right, we did cast you out." "Then why are you stopping me from leaving?" Minho's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Because 3 days ago, you smelled like dying embers. Barely there. Fading." He took a step closer. I pressed harder against the tree. "But now..." His voice dropped lower, quieter, and somehow that made it worse. "Now you smell like a forest fire waiting to ignite." My breath hitched. "What?" The man with the scar crossed his arms, his gaze heavy and unreadable. "Your scent changed, Junha. Completely. Overnight." "That's impossible," the younger alpha added, though his tone was more curious than accusing. "Omegas don't just shift scent profiles like that. Not without a trigger." I didn't know what to say. I didn't even know what they were talking about. All I knew was that every instinct in this body was screaming at me to either fight or flee. And fighting 3 alphas who could probably snap me in half wasn't exactly an option, so I did the only thing I could. I lied. "Maybe I'm just scared," I said, forcing my voice to sound bitter. "Maybe that's what fear smells like when you're surrounded by people who threw you away." Minho's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes, something almost like interest. "Fear doesn't smell like pine and storm smoke," he said. "It smells like salt and rust, and you." He leaned in close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating off his skin. "You smell like something I've never encountered before." My heart slammed against my ribs. Get away from him. Move. Do something. But I couldn't. My body was frozen, locked in place by instinct I didn't understand and couldn't control. Minho inhaled slowly, deliberately, and his eyes darkened. "Interesting," he murmured. The scarred alpha stepped forward. "Minho, if he's bonded to someone else..." "He's not," Minho interrupted, still watching me. "There's no claim mark, no secondary scent overlay. He's unclaimed. But his scent is different," Minho finished, "which means something happened to him in the last 3 days, something significant." "Yeah, I died and woke up in someone else's body. How's that for significant?" The younger alpha moved closer, his expression softening just slightly. "Junha, we're not trying to hurt you. We just need to understand what's going on. My name is Choi Seojun, he added gently, and this is Park Taejin. He nodded toward the scarred alpha. We're not your enemies. You threw me out, I said again, because I didn't know what else to say. That doesn't exactly scream friendship. Taejin's jaw tightened. That was a mistake. A mistake? I almost laughed, except nothing about this was funny. You don't just accidentally exile someone from their pack. No, Minho said, his voice cutting through the tension like a blade. You don't, but circumstances change. What circumstances? He didn't answer. Instead, he reached out, slow and deliberate, and before I could pull away, his fingers brushed against my wrist. The world tilted. Heat exploded through my veins, sharp and overwhelming and completely foreign. It wasn't painful exactly, but it wasn't pleasant either. It felt like being doused in gasoline and then handed a match. I gasped and jerked back, clutching my wrist to my chest. Minho's eyes widened just for a second before his expression smoothed back into controlled neutrality. What the hell was that? I choked out. Recognition, Minho said quietly. Your body recognizes me as Alpha. I thought you said I wasn't bonded. You're not, but your Omega instincts are intact. Strong, even. His gaze sharpened. Stronger than they should be for someone who was barely functional 3 days ago. Seojun frowned. Minho, if he's presenting differently, then we need to figure out why. Minho cut in. He looked at me, and for the first time, there was something in his eyes that wasn't cold calculation. It was something closer to hunger. Junha, I'm going to ask you a question, and I need you to answer honestly. I swallowed hard. What? Did something happen to you? Something you can't explain? Everything. Everything happened, but I couldn't tell him that. I couldn't explain that I wasn't really Junha, that I was someone else, trapped in his body, that I had no idea how any of this worked, or why my scent had changed, or what the hell a recognition bond was supposed to feel like. So I said the only thing I could. I don't remember. Minho's eyes narrowed. You don't remember? No. I forced myself to meet his gaze, even though every instinct in me screamed to look away. I woke up in the woods 3 days ago with no memory of how I got there. Everything before that is just fragments, pieces that don't fit together. It wasn't entirely a lie. The memories I'd inherited from the original Junha were fragmented at best, and I genuinely had no idea how I'd ended up in this body or this world. Taejin and Seojun exchanged a look. Minho just stared at me, his expression unreadable. Finally, he spoke. Then we'll have to help you remember. Before I could ask what that meant, he stepped closer, close enough that his scent wrapped around me like a physical presence. Pine. Cedar. Something darker underneath, like smoke and earth and danger. My knees went weak. Stay close to me, Minho said, his voice low and commanding. Until we figure out what's happening to you, you're under my protection. I don't need your protection, I managed, even though my body was screaming the opposite. Minho smiled, and this time it was sharp enough to cut. You will. I don't need protection from anyone, I said, pushing off the tree and forcing my legs to hold steady. Especially not from the pack that decided I wasn't worth keeping. Minho's smile didn't falter. If anything, it grew sharper. Then consider it a courtesy, he said. One I'm extending whether you accept it or not. That's not how courtesy works. It is when you're standing in my territory. The words hit like a slap. My territory, not ours. His. A reminder that no matter what memories lingered in this body, I didn't belong here anymore. I never really had. Taejin shifted. His weight, arms still crossed. Minho, we can't just force him to stay. The council can wait. Minho interrupted, his tone brooking no argument. Until we understand what triggered his scent change, he stays within pack boundaries. Like hell I do, I snapped, and the anger felt good. Clean. Better than the fear that had been choking me since I woke up in this nightmare. You don't get to kick me out and then drag me back like I'm some kind of science experiment. Seojun stepped forward, hands raised in a placating gesture. Junha, please, we're not trying to trap you. We just need to make sure you're safe. Safe from what? The three alphas exchanged a look. That look said everything. My stomach dropped. What aren't you telling me? Minho's expression hardened. When an Omega's scent changes this drastically, it usually means one of two things. Either they've been claimed by a powerful alpha, which you haven't, or I pressed. Or they're about to go into heat. The world stopped. Heat. I knew what that meant, even with my jumbled memories. I knew it was dangerous, overwhelming, and something that left Omegas completely vulnerable. Something that could attract every unmated alpha within miles. Something I absolutely could not afford to go through while surrounded by 3 alphas who were already watching me like I was something they wanted to devour. I'm not going into heat, I said, and I barely recognized my own voice. I would know. Would you? Taijin asked, his tone gentler than I expected. If your memories are fragmented, how can you be sure? I couldn't. That was the problem. I had no idea how this body worked, what signals I was supposed to be feeling, or whether the constant low-grade panic I'd been experiencing since I woke up was normal or a precursor to something worse. I'm leaving, I said, turning away from them. Right now. I made it exactly 3 steps before Minho appeared in front of me. I didn't see him move. 1 second he was behind me, the next he was there, blocking my path, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating off his skin. Move, I said. No, I'm not asking. Neither am I. His voice dropped lower, and something in it made every hair on my body stand on end. You're not leaving this clearing until you can give me one good reason why your scent is making every alpha instinct I have scream at me to either claim you or kill anyone who tries to get near you. My breath caught. Claim. The word sent ice and fire racing through my veins in equal measure. That sounds like a you problem, I managed. Minho's eyes flashed. It becomes our problem the second another pack catches your scent and decides to take you by force. Then I'll run faster. You can't outrun an alpha in pursuit. Seo Jun's voice came from behind me, quiet but firm. Especially not in your condition. What condition? I whirled around to face him. I'm fine. I'm not sick. I'm not dying. And I'm definitely not going into heat just because you think my scent smells different. Different doesn't cover it, Taijin said, and there was something almost pained in his expression. You smell like every instinct I've spent years learning to control is about to snap. The raw honesty in his voice stopped me cold. Seo Jun nodded slowly. He's right. I've never felt anything like this before. It's like standing too close to a fire and knowing you're about to get burned, but not being able to step back. My heart was racing so fast, I thought it might explode. So what, you're saying I'm dangerous now? No, Minho said. And when I turned back to him, his expression had shifted into something I couldn't quite read. We're saying you're irresistible. And that makes you a target. The word settled over me like a weight. Target. I didn't ask for this, I said, and I hated how broken I sounded. I didn't ask to be here, to be this, to have any of you looking at me like I'm something you need to possess. Minho's jaw tightened. We're not trying to possess you. Then what are you trying to do? Keep you alive. The words hung in the air between us, heavy and undeniable. I wanted to argue. I wanted to tell him I didn't need saving, that I could take care of myself, that I'd been doing it just fine before I woke up in this body. But the truth was, I had no idea how to survive in this world. I didn't know the rules, didn't understand the instincts screaming at me from the inside, didn't know how to control whatever was happening to my scent. And judging by the way all 3 alphas were watching me, tense and ready to move at the slightest provocation, I was running out of time to figure it out. Fine, I said finally, the word tasting like ash. I'll stay. For now. Minho's shoulders relaxed, just slightly. Smart choice. But I'm not staying. With you, I added quickly. I'll find somewhere else in the territory, somewhere away from all of you. Seo Jun opened his mouth to argue, but Minho held up a hand. Agreed, he said. On one condition. Of course there was a condition. What? Minho stepped closer, and this time I didn't back away. I couldn't. My body was locked in place, caught between fear and something far more dangerous. You report to me every morning, he said, so I can monitor your condition. Monitor your scent, your health, your stability. His eyes locked onto mine. If you're going into heat, I need to know before it happens, for your safety and everyone else's. I wanted to refuse. I wanted to tell him to go to hell, but the look in his eyes told me this wasn't negotiable. Fine, I bit out. Every morning. But that's it. No following me, no checking in randomly, no treating me like I'm some fragile thing that needs constant supervision. Minho's lips curved. Deal. He extended his hand. I stared at it like it might bite me. "Seal it properly," he said, "or the agreement doesn't hold." I didn't know what he meant until Tae-jin spoke up. In pack law, verbal agreements between Alpha and Omega require physical contact to bind. My pulse jumped. "That's convenient." "That's tradition," Minho corrected. I looked at his outstretched hand, then back at his face. Every instinct I had screamed at me not to touch him again. Not after what happened the first time, when that strange heat had exploded through my body and left me gasping. But if I didn't, I had a feeling he wouldn't let me leave this clearing. So I reached out and clasped his hand. The world ignited. Heat slammed into me, so intense I couldn't breathe. It wasn't painful, but it was overwhelming, like being submerged in boiling water. My vision blurred at the edges. My knees buckled. Minho caught me before I hit the ground, his arm wrapping around my waist and pulling me against his chest. "Breathe," he commanded. And somehow, through the haze, I obeyed. Air rushed into my lungs. The heat began to recede slowly, leaving behind a strange tingling sensation that spread from where his hand touched my skin. "What?" I gasped. "The hell was that?" Minho's expression was unreadable, but his grip on me didn't loosen. Recognition bond. Stronger than I thought. Seo-jun and Tae-jin were staring, both of them looking somewhere between shocked and fascinated. "That shouldn't be possible," Seo-jun breathed. "Not without a claiming bite." Minho's eyes never left mine. "Apparently, it is." And in that moment, as I stood there in his arms with my heart racing and my body still humming with residual heat, I realized something terrifying. I wasn't afraid of dogs anymore. I was afraid of him. I shoved against his chest hard enough that he had to let me go or risk looking like he was restraining me. He let me go. I stumbled back, putting as much distance between us as the clearing would allow. My hands were shaking. My whole body was shaking. "Don't ever do that again," I said, and my voice came out raw. Minho's expression remained calm, controlled. "I didn't do anything. You initiated contact. You knew what would happen." I suspected. He tilted his head slightly. "Now I'm certain." "Certain of what?" He didn't answer. Instead, he looked at Tae-jin and Seo-jun. "Take him to the safe house on the north border. Make sure he has everything he needs." "Wait, what?" I took another step back. "I'm not going anywhere with them." "You agreed to stay in pack territory," Minho reminded me. "The safe house is isolated, defensible, and far enough from the main compound that you'll have the privacy you demanded." "I didn't demand anything. I just said I didn't want to stay with you." "And you won't be." His tone was perfectly reasonable, which somehow made it worse. "Tae-jin and Seo-jun will stay nearby in case of emergency, but they won't intrude unless necessary." Seo-jun smiled softly. "We'll give you space. I promise." I looked between the three of them, trying to find the trap. There had to be one. Alphas didn't just offer Omegas safe housing and privacy out of the goodness of their hearts, especially not in a world where hierarchy and dominance were baked into every social interaction. "What's the catch?" I asked. "No catch," Minho said. "Just the agreement we already made. You report to me every morning. In exchange, you get safety and autonomy. And if I try to leave," his eyes hardened, "then the agreement is void, and I'll do whatever is necessary to ensure you don't end up dead or claimed by a pack that won't treat you half as well as we would." The possessiveness in his voice made my stomach twist. "You don't own me," I said. "No," he agreed, "but your scent is calling to every unmated alpha within a 10-mile radius right now. By tomorrow, that radius will double. By the end of the week, you'll have rival packs sniffing around our borders looking for the source." I slid down my spine. "You're lying." "Am I?" Minho stepped closer, and this time I didn't back away. I couldn't. My legs wouldn't move. "You want to test that theory? Walk out of this territory right now and see how long it takes before someone else finds you." I opened my mouth to argue, but Tae-jin cut in. "He's not exaggerating," he said quietly. "I've been in pack security for 8 years. I've seen what happens when an Omega's scent goes wild like this. It's not pretty." Seo-jun nodded. "The safe house really is your best option, at least until we figure out what's happening to you." I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell them all to go to hell, that I'd take my chances on my own, that I didn't need their protection, or their rules, or their suffocating presence. But I wasn't stupid. I didn't know this world. I didn't know how to fight, how to shift, or how to survive without a pack. And if what they were saying was true, If my scent really was about to turn me into a target for every aggressive alpha in the area, then staying put was the only logical choice, even if it felt like walking into a cage. "Fine," I said. "Take me to the safe house." Minho's expression softened just slightly. "Good." He turned to leave, then paused. "One more thing." I tensed. "What?" "If you feel anything strange, anything at all, you tell Taejin or Seojin immediately. Fever, dizziness, increased sensitivity to touch or scent. Anything." "Why?" His gaze pinned me in place. "Because if you go into heat without warning, and I'm not there to control the situation, someone else will be. And I can't guarantee they'll be gentle about it." The words landed like a punch. Before I could respond, he walked away, disappearing into the trees without another word. Seojun let out a slow breath. "He's not usually that intense." "Could have fooled me," I muttered. Taejin moved to stand beside me, his scarred face unreadable. "The safe house is about a mile north. Can you walk, or do you need help?" "I can walk." "Good." He started moving, his pace steady but not rushed. "Stay close. The forest isn't safe after dark." I followed, because what else was I going to do? Seojun fell into step beside me, close enough that his scent wrapped around me like a second skin. Warmer than Minho's, less sharp. It smelled like summer rain and something sweeter, almost like honey. It should have been comforting. It wasn't. "You don't have to be afraid of us," Seojun said after a few minutes of silence. I almost laughed. "You say that like it's a choice, isn't it? Not when my body is screaming at me to either submit or run every time one of you gets too close." Seojun's expression turned thoughtful. "Is that what it feels like? Submission or flight? What else would it be?" He didn't answer right away. When he finally spoke, his voice was quieter. "For us, it feels like gravity, like you're pulling us toward you and we don't have a choice but to follow." I stopped walking. Seojun stopped too, turning to face me. His eyes were steady, sincere. "I'm not trying to scare you," he said. "I just want you to understand that whatever you're feeling, we're feeling it too, just in a different way. That doesn't make it better." "I know." He smiled, small and sad. "But it's the truth." Taejin called back from ahead. "We need to keep moving. Sun's going down." Seojun gestured for me to continue, and I did, my mind spinning. Gravity. He'd called it gravity, like I was some kind of black hole pulling them in whether they wanted it or not. The thought should have made me feel powerful. Instead, it just made me feel trapped. The safe house appeared through the trees 20 minutes later. It was smaller than I expected, more cabin than compound, with rough wooden walls and a sloping roof. A single window glowed with warm light from inside. "Someone's already here?" I asked. Taejin shook his head. "Automatic system, lights, heat, water, everything's already set up." "Convenient." "Necessary," he corrected. "We keep safe houses stocked and ready at all times. You never know when you'll need one." He pushed open the door and stepped inside, gesturing for me to follow. The interior was simple but functional, a small living area with a couch and a fireplace, a kitchenette in the corner, a door that probably led to a bedroom and bathroom. It smelled like pine cleaner and old wood. Nothing like home. But then again, I didn't have a home anymore. "We'll be in the cabin a quarter-mile east," Taejin said. "If you need anything, there's a radio on the counter, channel 3. And if I don't need anything, then we'll see you in the morning," Seojun said. "When you report to Minho." "Right. The agreement." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Taejin studied me for a long moment, then turned to leave. Seojun lingered. "Junha," he said softly. I looked up. "We really aren't your enemies." I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him. But trust was a luxury I couldn't afford. "Thanks for the escort," I said instead. Seojun's smile faded. He nodded once, then followed Taejin out the door. The latch clicked shut behind them. I stood in the middle of the empty cabin, surrounded by silence and the faint scent of alphas I didn't know and couldn't escape. And for the first time since I'd woken up in this body, I let myself feel the full weight of what had happened. I was alone, in a world I didn't understand, in a body that wasn't mine, surrounded by people who wanted something from me I didn't know how to give. My knees gave out. I sank to the floor, back against the door, and pressed my palms against my eyes. I didn't cry. I couldn't afford to, but I came close. The silence pressed in around me, heavy and suffocating, and somewhere in the distance, I heard the low, mournful howl of a wolf. It sounded like it was calling for something. Or someone. And deep in my chest, something I didn't recognize stirred in response. I pressed harder against my eyes until colors burst behind my lids. The howl faded into silence, but that thing in my chest kept stirring, restless and foreign, like something was trying to claw its way out from the inside. Stop. Just stop. I forced myself to breathe. In through the nose, out through the mouth. The way I used to when panic attacks hit me during finals week in my old life. My real life. The one where I was human and safe, and the most dangerous thing I had to worry about was whether I'd remembered to lock my apartment door. A sharp knock shattered the silence. I jerked. Upright, heart slamming against my ribs. Junha. Seo-jun's voice came through the door, muffled but clear. Are you okay? I'm fine, I called back, and I almost believed it. A pause. You don't sound fine. I said I'm fine. Another pause, longer this time, then quieter. Can I come in? No. Please. The raw honesty in that single word made something in my chest ache. I pushed myself to my feet and opened the door just enough to see him. He stood on the porch, backlit by the dying light, his expression caught somewhere between concern and guilt. What do you want? I asked. To make sure you're not alone right now. I said I wanted privacy. I know what you said. He shifted his weight, uncomfortable. But I also know what it's like to feel like you don't belong anywhere. And I thought maybe you could use someone who understands that. I should have told him to leave, should have closed the door and locked it and pretended I didn't need anyone. But I was so tired of pretending. 5 minutes, I said, stepping back. Seo-jun slipped inside, closing the door behind him with a soft click. He didn't move further into the room, just stood there with his hands in his pockets, giving me space. You didn't have to come back, I said. I know. Then why did you? He looked at me, and something in his eyes was painfully sincere, because when Taijin and I were halfway to our cabin, I felt it. Felt what? Your distress. He said it simply, like it was obvious. It hit me like a wave. 1 second I was fine, the next I couldn't breathe without knowing if you were okay. My stomach dropped. That's not possible. It shouldn't be, he agreed. But it is. You're not just affecting Minho. You're affecting all of us. I sank onto the couch, legs too weak to hold me anymore. I don't understand any of this. Seo-jun moved slowly, carefully, and sat on the far end of the couch, close enough to talk far enough that I didn't feel trapped. What do you remember, he asked gently. About before you lost your memories? I looked at him, trying to gauge whether honesty would help or hurt me here. His expression was open, patient. So I took a chance. Fragments, I said. Feelings more than facts. I remember being small, invisible, like I was always apologizing for existing. Seo-jun's jaw tightened. I remember the pack meetings, I continued, pulling from the jumbled memories in my head. Standing in the back while everyone else talked around me like I wasn't there. I remember being told my scent was weak, wrong, that I'd never be strong enough to contribute anything meaningful. Junha. I remember the day Minho told me to leave. The memory was clearer than the others, sharp enough to cut. He didn't yell, didn't get angry. He just looked at me like I was a problem he'd finally found a solution to. Seo-jun's hands curled into fists on his knees. He didn't mean it the way it sounded. Then how did he mean it? He was trying to protect you. I laughed, bitter and hollow. By throwing me out? By giving you a chance to find somewhere you'd be valued. Seo-jun turned to face me fully. Junha, you have to understand. 3 months ago, the pack was under attack. A rival group was targeting our weakest members, trying to draw us out and create chaos. My breath caught. You were sick, he continued. Your scent had been fading for weeks. You could barely shift, and Minho knew that if you stayed, you'd be the first target. So he made me leave. He made you look abandoned, Seo-jun corrected. So the rival pack would think you weren't worth their time, so they'd focus on other targets and leave you alone. The room tilted. He was trying to save your life, Seo-jun said quietly, even if it meant you'd hate him for it. I stared at him, trying to process what he was saying. Then why didn't he just tell me that? Because you wouldn't have left otherwise. You would have stayed and fought even though you weren't strong enough, even though it would have gotten you killed. My hands were shaking again. I pressed them flat against my thighs. So, he lied. He sacrificed your trust to keep you alive, Seo-jun said, and it's been killing him ever since. I didn't know what to feel. Anger, relief, betrayal, all of it crashed together in my chest until I couldn't separate one emotion from another. If that's true, I said slowly, then why bring me back now? Why not just let me disappear? Seo-jun's expression turned pained. Because 3 days ago, we found out the rival pack was wiped out by another territory dispute. The threat is gone, and the second Minho realized you were safe to come home, he went looking for you. He didn't find me. No, you found us. Seo-jun leaned forward slightly, and when you walked into that clearing, smelling completely different, stronger than you'd ever been, Minho realized something had changed, something big. So now I'm interesting, I said flatly. Now I'm worth keeping. No. Seo-jun's voice turned sharp. Now he has a chance to fix what he broke, and he's terrified he's already too late. The words hung between us. I wanted to stay angry. I wanted to hold on to the hurt and use it as armor. But the truth was, I wasn't really Yunha. I was just wearing his body, living his life, carrying his pain like it was my own. And maybe that made me the worst kind of fraud. I'm not who you think I am, I said quietly. Seo-jun frowned. What do you mean? I mean the Junha you knew, the one Minho tried to save. He's gone. Whatever memories I have of him, they're not enough to make me him. Junha. I woke up 3 days ago with no idea who I was supposed to be, I continued, the words spilling out faster now. And every time one of you looks at me like you're waiting for me to remember something important, I feel like I'm failing a test I didn't even know I was taking. Seo-jun was quiet for a long moment. Then carefully he said, You're not failing anything. How do you know? Because you're here, he said simply. You came back. You're trying. That's more than enough. Something in his voice cracked through the wall I'd been building. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw something I hadn't expected, understanding. You said you know what it's like, I said, to feel like you don't belong. Seo-jun nodded slowly. I wasn't born into Silver Crest. I was a rogue for 2 years before Minho found me half dead in the snow and brought me home. Why were you a rogue? His smile was bitter. Because my old pack didn't want an alpha who refused to fight for dominance. They said I was weak, broken, that I'd never be strong enough to lead. But you're here now, because Minho saw something in me. No one else did, Seo-jun said. He gave me a place when I didn't have one, and I've spent every day since trying to prove I deserved it. The parallel wasn't lost on me. So you're saying I should give him a chance, I said. I'm saying you should give yourself a chance. Seo-jun's gaze held mine. Whatever happened to you, whatever changed, you're still here, still standing. That takes strength most people don't have. My throat tightened. And for what it's worth, he added softer now. I don't think you're broken. I think you're just figuring out who you are. And that's the bravest thing anyone can do. I didn't trust myself to speak. Seo-jun stood, slow and careful. I should go. Let you rest. Seo-jun. He paused, hand on the doorknob. Thank you, I said, for coming back. His smile was small but genuine. Anytime. He left, and the silence returned. But this time, it didn't feel quite so suffocating. I moved to the window and looked out at the darkening forest. Somewhere out there, Minho was probably pacing, waiting for morning so he could check on me and confirm I hadn't run. Somewhere out there, Taijin was standing guard, making sure no one got close enough to be a threat. And somewhere in the trees, that howl rose again, lonely and aching. This time, when something stirred in my chest, I didn't fight it. I let it rise, let it settle, let it exist, because maybe Seo-jun was right. Maybe I wasn't broken. Maybe I was just becoming something new. And maybe that was okay. The thought barely had time to settle before a wave of heat rolled through me. Not the sharp, electric kind from when Minho touched me. This was different, slower, deeper, like someone had lit a candle in the center of my chest, and the flame was spreading outward, licking at my ribs, curling around my spine. I gripped the windowsill, knuckles white. No, not now. But my body didn't care what I wanted. The heat. intensified, spreading down my arms, pooling low in my stomach. My skin felt too tight, too sensitive. Even the soft fabric of my shirt was suddenly unbearable. I yanked it off and threw it across the room. The cool air should have helped. It didn't. My heart was racing now, pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I stumbled toward the couch, but my legs gave out halfway there. I hit the floor hard, palms slapping against wood. Breathe, just breathe. But every breath I took made it worse. The air tasted like pine and cedar, like Minho's scent had soaked into the walls and was now suffocating me from the inside out. I needed water, air, something. I crawled toward the kitchenette, but the heat spiked again, so intense I couldn't move, couldn't think, couldn't do anything except curl in on myself and wait for it to pass. It didn't pass. The door slammed open. I didn't have the strength to look up, but I knew who it was before he spoke. His scent hit me like a tidal wave, and instead of making things worse, it cut through the heat like a knife. Junha. Minho's voice was rough, urgent. Footsteps crossed the room in 3 strides, and then he was kneeling beside me, hands hovering just above my shoulders like he was afraid to touch. "Don't," I gasped. "Don't touch me." "I have to." His voice was strained. "Your scent just spiked across half the territory. If I don't stabilize you right now, every unmated alpha within 5 miles is going to be at that door in the next 10 minutes. "I don't care." "Yes, you do." His hand settled on my back, firm and steady, and the relief was immediate. The heat didn't disappear, but it stopped spreading, stopped consuming. "Breathe with me. In, out, slow." I tried. God, I tried, but every inhale brought his scent deeper into my lungs, and every exhale left me wanting more. "You're going into preheat," Minho said, and there was something almost gentle in his tone. "It's not full heat yet, but it will be soon if we don't get it under control." "How?" I managed. "Scent marking, temporary bond. It'll trick your body into thinking you're claimed, which should stabilize your hormones long enough for the spike to pass." I twisted enough to look at him. His jaw was tight, his eyes dark and focused. "You want to mark me. I want to keep you safe." "That's not the same thing." "Right now, it is." His hand moved to my shoulder, thumb brushing against the side of my neck. The touch sent sparks racing down my spine. "I need your permission, Yunha. I won't do this unless you say yes." The heat pulsed again, stronger this time, and I bit down on my lip hard enough to taste blood. I had 2 choices. Let him mark me, or risk every other alpha in the area breaking down the door and taking what they wanted by force. It wasn't really a choice at all. "Do it," I said. Minho's expression shifted, something raw and hungry flashing in his eyes before he locked it down. "Turn around, let me see your neck." I shifted, barely able to hold myself upright, and tilted my head to the side. His fingers brushed against my nape, feather-light, and I shuddered. "This won't hurt," he said quietly, "but it will feel intense. Don't fight it." Before I could ask what he meant, his mouth pressed against the curve of my neck, right where it met my shoulder. The world exploded. Heat and pleasure and something so overwhelming I couldn't name it slammed into me all at once. My vision whited out, my hands clawed at the floor, looking for something, anything to anchor me. Minho's arm wrapped around my waist, pulling me back against his chest, holding me steady while his scent poured over me in waves. He wasn't biting, wasn't breaking skin, but somehow it didn't matter. The pressure of his mouth, the warmth of his breath, the way his scent was sinking into my skin like it belonged there, it was enough. More than enough. The heat began to recede, slow and reluctant, like a tide pulling back from the shore. My breathing evened out. My heartbeat slowed. The unbearable sensitivity faded into something manageable. Minho pulled back, his hand still resting on my waist. "Better?" I nodded, not trusting my voice. He shifted, turning me around so I was facing him. His eyes searched mine, looking for something. "Are you okay?" "I don't know," I admitted. "What just happened?" "Temporary scent bond. It'll last a few hours, maybe longer depending on how strong the connection is." He hesitated. "You smell like me now. Any alpha who gets close will think you're already claimed and back off. And when it wears off, we'll reassess." His thumb traced a slow circle on my hip, and I realized he was still holding me. "But for tonight, you're safe." I should have pulled away, should have put distance between us. But I was so tired. And he was warm. And for the first time since, I'd woken up in this nightmare. I felt like I could breathe without something trying to tear me apart from the inside. So I stayed. Minho's expression softened just slightly. "Can I move you to the couch? The floor can't be comfortable." "I can walk." "I know you can." His voice was patient. "But you don't have to." I let him lift me, let him carry me the few steps to the couch and settle me against the cushions like I was something fragile, something worth protecting. He sat beside me, close but not touching, and the silence that stretched between us wasn't uncomfortable. It was something else entirely. "Why did you really come back?" I asked after a while. "Seo-jun said you felt my distress, but that's not the whole truth, is it?" Minho was quiet for a long moment, then quietly, "No, it's not." "Then what is?" He looked at me, and for the first time, the mask he wore cracked just enough for me to see what was underneath. Guilt, longing, something painfully close to hope, because the second you walked into that clearing, he said, "I knew I'd made the worst mistake of my life letting you go, and I've been trying to figure out how to fix it ever since." The honesty in his voice stole the breath from my lungs. "I don't know if you can fix it," I said. "I know." He reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away, and when I didn't, his fingers brushed against mine. "But I'm going to try anyway." The touch was gentle, tentative, like he was afraid I'd shatter if he held on too tight. And maybe I would. But right now, in this moment, with his scent wrapped around me and his hand barely touching mine, I felt safer than I had since I'd woken up in this world. "Stay," I said before I could stop myself. "Just for tonight." Minho's eyes widened just slightly. "Are you sure?" "No." I looked down at our hands, at the way his fingers had curled around mine like he was afraid to let go. "But I don't want to be alone right now." Something in his expression softened completely. "Then I'll stay." He shifted, settling back against the couch, and after a moment's hesitation, I leaned into him. Just a little, just enough to feel the solid warmth of him against my side. His arm came around me, loose and careful, and I closed my eyes. Outside, the forest was silent. No howls, no movement, just the quiet rustle of wind through the trees. Inside, the heat had faded to a low simmer, manageable and distant. And for the first time in 3 days, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, I'd survive this. Minho's breath evened out beside me, slow and steady. I matched my breathing to his, and somewhere between one heartbeat and the next, I drifted into sleep. Safe, warm, and for once, not alone. The warmth disappeared. I woke to cold air and empty space where Minho had been, my eyes snapping open in the pale gray light filtering through the window. He was standing across the room, back rigid, phone pressed to his ear. "I don't care what the council says," he said, voice low and sharp. "You tell them it's handled." A pause. "No, he stays here." Another pause, longer this time, his jaw clenched. "Because he's mine." The words hit me like ice water. Mine, not ours, not the pack's. Mine, like I was property, like I was something he'd claimed and owned and could dictate terms for. I sat up slowly, and the movement caught his attention. His eyes flicked to me, and for a split second, something almost guilty crossed his face before he locked it down. "I have to go," he said into the phone, then ended the call without waiting for a response. The silence stretched between us, heavy and uncomfortable. "How long have you been awake?" I asked. "An hour, maybe 2. He slid the phone into his pocket. "You were sleeping. I didn't want to wake you." "Who was that?" "Pack Council. They heard about the scent spike last night." He crossed his arms, and the defensive posture told me everything I needed to know. "They have questions." "What kind of questions?" "The kind I'm not going to answer." His tone was final, dismissive. "It's handled." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one you're getting." The shift in his demeanor was so sudden it left me reeling. Last night he'd been gentle, careful, almost vulnerable. Now he was back to being the cold, controlled alpha who made decisions without explanation and expected everyone to fall in line. I stood ignoring the way my legs still felt unsteady. "You said I was yours." Minho's expression didn't change. "You are." "I'm not." "Your scent says otherwise." He moved toward me, and I hated how my body responded, how every instinct screamed at me to either submit or close the distance between us. The bond we formed last night isn't just temporary anymore. It's locked in, which means every wolf in this territory, now knows you're under my protection. I didn't agree to that. You agreed when you asked me to mark you. That was to stop the heat, I snapped, not to give you ownership. In pack law, there's no difference. His voice was maddeningly calm. A mark is a mark, Junha. Temporary or not, it carries weight. And now that weight ties you to me, whether you like it or not. The room tilted. You knew, I said, the realization slamming into me. You knew it would do this, and you did it anyway. I did what was necessary to keep you safe. You did what was convenient for you. My hands were shaking again, but this time it wasn't fear. It was rage. You didn't want to keep me safe. You wanted to make sure no one else could touch me. Those are the same thing. No, they're not. I moved toward him, and he didn't back away. One is protection. The other is possession. And you just proved which one you actually care about. Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. You think I did this for myself? I think you saw an opportunity and took it, I shot back. Just like you saw an opportunity to throw me out when I was weak, and now you're seeing an opportunity to pull me back in because suddenly I'm interesting again. That's not what happened. Then what did happen, I demanded, because from where I'm standing, it looks like you only care about me when I'm useful to you. Minho's control cracked. I sent you away to save your life. So you've said. And I've spent every day since regretting it, he continued, his voice rising. Every single day wondering if you were safe, if you were eating, if you were even still alive. And when you came back, and I realized I had a chance to fix what I broke, I took it. Not because you're useful, because I couldn't stand the thought of losing you again. The raw honesty in his voice should have softened me. It didn't. You don't get to play the martyr, I said. Not. When you just trapped me into a bond I didn't understand, and you knew I wouldn't want. I had no choice. There's always a choice. You just made the one that benefited you most. Minho stepped closer, and the air between us crackled with tension. If I hadn't marked you last night, you'd be dead, or claimed by someone who wouldn't give a damn about your consent. So forgive me for prioritizing your survival over your feelings. My feelings? I laughed, bitter and hollow. You don't know the first thing about my feelings. Then tell me. His voice dropped, dangerous and low. Tell me what you're feeling right now. I feel trapped, I said, and my voice broke on the word. I feel like no matter what I do, no matter how hard I try to figure out who I am in this nightmare, someone is always deciding for me. And the worst part? The absolute worst part is that I almost believed you actually cared. Minho flinched like I'd struck him. I do care. No, you don't. I shook my head. You care about control. About making sure everything fits into the neat little hierarchy you've built, and I'm just another piece you're trying to slot into place. That's not true. Then prove it. I stepped back, putting distance between us. Let me go. Right now. Break the bond, tell the council I'm not yours, and let me leave. The silence that followed was deafening. Minho stared at me, his expression caught somewhere between fury and devastation. I can't, he said finally. Can't or won't. Both. His hands curled into fists at his sides. The bond is locked. Breaking it now would destabilize both of us. And even if it wouldn't, I'm not letting you walk out of here unprotected when there are still threats you don't know about. What threats? The kind that don't care about pack law or territory lines. His voice was rough. The kind that would take one look at you and decide you're worth starting a war over. You're lying. I wish I was. I searched his face for any sign of deception and found none. Just exhaustion and something that looked painfully close to desperation. Why didn't you tell me this before? I asked. Because you already didn't trust me, he said. And I didn't want to scare you into staying when I wanted you to choose it. So instead, you manipulated me into a bond I can't break. I saved your life, he corrected. There's a difference. Not to me. The words landed between us like a blade. Minho's expression shuddered completely, and when he spoke again, his voice was cold, controlled, every trace of vulnerability erased. Fine, he said. You want the truth. Here it is. You're bound to me now whether you like it or not. You'll report to me every morning as agreed. You'll stay in pack territory where I can keep you safe. And if you try to leave, I'll stop you. That's not protection, I said. That's imprisonment. Call it whatever you want. He turned toward the door. But you're staying. Minho. He paused, hand on the doorknob. I'll never forgive you for this, I said quietly. His shoulders tensed, but he didn't turn around. I know. The door opened. But I'd rather have you alive and hating me, he continued, his voice barely above a whisper, than free and dead. Then he left. The door closed behind him with a soft click that sounded like a cell locking. I stood in the middle of the empty cabin, surrounded by his scent and the weight of everything I couldn't change. My hands were shaking, my chest was tight, and deep inside, where that strange, restless thing had been stirring since I woke up in this body, something cracked. Not broke, not shattered, just cracked enough to let the anger and hurt and betrayal flood in. I sank to the floor, back against the couch, and pressed my palms against my eyes. This time, I didn't stop the tears. I let them come. Because maybe Seo-jun was wrong. Maybe I wasn't becoming something new. Maybe I was just breaking. And no one, not even Minho with all his control and power and desperate justifications, could stop it. Outside, the forest was waking up. Birds called. Wind rustled through leaves. Inside, I sat in the ruins of the first moment of safety I'd felt since arriving in this world, and I wondered if I'd ever feel it again. A knock shattered the silence. I wiped my face with the back of my hand and forced myself to stand. My legs were steadier now, anger burning away the weakness. Go away, Minho, I called out. It's not Minho, Taejin's voice. I crossed to the door and yanked it open. He stood on the porch, expression carefully neutral, but his eyes tracked the tear stains on my face with the precision of someone trained to notice everything. What do you want? I asked. To talk. He glanced past me into the cabin. May I come in? Does it matter if I say no? Yes. His tone was firm. I'm not here on Minho's orders. I'm here because I think you deserve to hear the full story before you decide what happens next. I almost slammed the door in his face, almost told him I didn't care about stories or explanations or whatever justification he was about to offer, but something in his expression stopped me. He looked tired, worried, and underneath it all, genuinely conflicted. I stepped back and let him in. Taejin moved into the cabin with the careful awareness of someone used to navigating dangerous territory. He didn't sit, just stood near the center of the room, hands loose at his sides. Minho shouldn't have marked you without explaining the consequences, he said. That was wrong. I'm aware. But he wasn't lying about the threats. Taejin's gaze locked onto mine. There's a pack, 2 territories over. Bloodstone. They've been testing our borders for the last 6 months, looking for weaknesses. What? Does that have to do with me? Everything. He crossed his arms. 3 weeks ago, we intercepted communications suggesting they'd identified a target, an Omega with unusual scent markers, one they believed could destabilize our pack structure if they acquired them. My stomach dropped. Junha. Yes. Taejin's expression darkened. That's why Minho sent you away. Not because you were weak, but because Bloodstone was actively hunting you. He made it look like you'd been exiled so they'd think you were worthless and move on to another target. And did they? For a while. He paused. But when you came back 3 days ago with your scent completely transformed, stronger than it's ever been, every scout within 20 miles noticed, including theirs. Ice crawled down my spine. So, Minho marked me to claim me before they could. He marked you to make it clear you're under Silvercrest protection, Taejin corrected. If Bloodstone tries to take you now, it's an act of war. One they can't afford. So I am bait. No. His voice turned sharp. You're pack, and we protect our own. I'm not pack, I shot back. I'm a liability. You're all stuck managing because Minho couldn't stand the thought of someone else having me. Taejin's jaw tightened. You think that's what this is? Isn't it? No. He moved closer, and there was something fierce in his expression now. Junha, I've known Minho for 12 years. I've watched him build this pack from nothing, watched him sacrifice everything to keep it safe, and in all that time, I've never seen him lose control the way he did last night when your distress hit. He seemed pretty in control when he was telling me I couldn't leave. Because he's terrified. The words came out rough, honest. He's terrified that if he shows you how much power you have over him, you'll use it to walk away, and he won't survive that twice. The confession hung in the air between us. That's not my problem, I said, but my voice lacked conviction. Maybe not. Taejin's expression softened. But it's the truth, and you deserve to know it before you make your choice. What choice? He said I'm bound to him, that I can't leave. The bond can be broken, Taijin said quietly. Not easily and not without consequences, but it can be done. My breath caught. He said it would destabilize us. It would, for both of you. Taijin held my gaze. Breaking a recognition bond causes physical and emotional trauma, fever, disorientation, loss of scent sensitivity. It takes weeks to recover, sometimes longer, and there's always a risk it won't heal properly. But it's possible. Yes. He nodded slowly. If that's what you truly want, I'll help you. I'll make sure you're somewhere safe while you recover, and I'll make sure Minho doesn't interfere. The offer was so unexpected it left me speechless. Why? I finally managed. Why would you go against your alpha? For me? Because you're right, Taijin said. No one should be forced into a bond they don't want, not even for their own protection. And if Minho can't see that, then someone needs to remind him what pack actually means. Tears pricked at my eyes again, but I blinked them back. What about the threats? Bloodstone. We'll handle them. His voice was steady, certain. With or without the bond, you're under Silvercrest protection. That doesn't change. I turned away, moving toward the window. The forest beyond looked peaceful in the morning light, but I knew better now. Knew that danger was always lurking just beyond the tree line, waiting for the right moment to strike. If I break the bond, I said slowly, what happens to Minho? He'll recover. Taijin moved to stand beside me. Eventually. But it'll hurt him. Yes. I pressed my palm against the glass, feeling the cold seep through. And if I don't break it, then you stay bound to him until one of you dies, or the bond is formally completed through a claiming bite. Taijin's reflection met mine in the window, which means you'd be tied to him for life. The weight of that settled over me like a shroud. Two choices, both terrible in different ways. Break the bond and risk my safety while causing Minho pain I wasn't sure he deserved despite everything he'd done, or stay bound to someone who'd manipulated me into a connection I never asked for, trapped in a world I didn't understand with no way out. What would you do? I asked. If you were me, Taijin was quiet for a long moment. I'd ask myself one question. What question? Do you hate him because of what he did, or because you're afraid of how much you don't? The words cut straight through me, because he was right. I was angry, hurt, betrayed, but underneath all of that, there was something else, something I didn't want to acknowledge. Last night, when Minho held me, when his scent wrapped around me and made the pain stop, I'd felt safe, protected, like maybe, just maybe, I wasn't as alone as I thought, and that terrified me more than anything Bloodstone could do. I need time, I said finally, to think. How much time? I don't know. I turned to face him. But I need to figure this out on my own, without Minho, without you, without anyone telling me what I should feel or what I should do. Taijin studied me for a moment, then nodded. I'll give you space. But Junha, yeah? Whatever you decide, make sure it's what you actually want, not what you think you're supposed to want, not what's safest or easiest or most logical. His voice softened. What you want, that's the only thing that matters. He moved toward the door, then paused. The radio on the counter connects directly to me, not Minho. If you need anything, use it. Thank you, I said quietly. He nodded once and left. The door closed behind him, and I was alone. Again, I moved back to the couch and sank into it, exhausted despite having just woken up. Taijin's question echoed in my head. Do you hate him because of what he did, or because you're afraid of how much you don't? I closed my eyes and tried to untangle the mess of emotions knotted in my chest. Anger, hurt, betrayal, but also safety, warmth, connection. The memory of Minho's voice, rough and desperate, saying he'd rather have me alive and hating him than free and dead. The way he'd held me last night, careful and gentle, like I was something precious. The look in his eyes when I told him I'd never forgive him. Pain, raw and undeniable. I pressed my hands against my face and let out a shaky breath. I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know who I was supposed to be in this world, or whether Junha's memories would ever make sense, or if I'd ever stop feeling like a stranger in my own skin. But I knew one thing. I was tired of running. Tired of being afraid. Tired of letting other people make choices for me because I was too overwhelmed to make them myself. And maybe that meant staying was the wrong choice. Or maybe it meant staying was the only choice that was truly mine. I didn't know, but I had time to figure it out. And, for now, that was enough. I opened my eyes and looked out the window at the forest bathed in morning light. Somewhere out there, Minho was dealing with the council, fighting battles I didn't fully understand to keep me safe. Somewhere out there, Bloodstone was watching, waiting. And somewhere deep inside me, that restless thing that had been stirring since I woke up in this body settled. Not gone. Not healed. Just quiet. Waiting. Like me. I sat there for what felt like hours, letting the quiet settle around me like snow. The anger was still there, simmering low in my chest. But so was something else. Something softer, more complicated. Understanding, maybe. Or the beginning of it. I stood and moved to the small mirror hanging near the door. My reflection stared back at me, eyes still reed-rimmed, hair a mess, the faint shadow of exhaustion etched into my features. But underneath all of that, I looked different somehow, stronger, like maybe all the breaking had been necessary, like maybe I needed to shatter before I could figure out how the pieces were supposed to fit back together. My hand moved to my neck, fingers brushing over the spot where Minho had marked me. It didn't hurt, didn't burn. It just felt warm, present, like a constant reminder that I wasn't alone, even when I wanted to be. I dropped my hand and turned away from the mirror. What do I want? The question circled through my mind like a prayer. Not what I was supposed to want. Not what was safest or smartest or most logical. What I actually wanted. I closed my eyes and let myself feel it. All of it. The anger and the hurt and the betrayal, but also the safety I'd felt in Minho's arms, the way Seo Jun's kindness had cracked through my defenses, the quiet strength in Tae-jin's honesty. These people, this pack, they weren't perfect, but neither was I. And maybe that was the point. Maybe forgiveness wasn't about erasing what had been done. Maybe it was about choosing to move forward anyway, with eyes open and heart guarded, but not closed. Maybe it was about deciding that being seen, even imperfectly, was better than being invisible. I grabbed the radio off the counter and turned it to channel 3. Tae-jin, I said into the receiver. Static crackled, then his voice came through. Junha, are you okay? I need you to bring Minho here. A pause. Are you sure? No. I looked out the window at the forest, at the sunlight filtering through the trees. But I need to talk to him. And I need to do it before I lose my nerve. I'll bring him. Tae-jin's voice was steady, supportive. Give me 10 minutes. The radio went silent. I set it down and pressed my palms against the counter, trying to steady my breathing. This was it. The choice. The moment where I either broke the bond and walked away, or I stayed and figured out how to build something real from the wreckage. Both options terrified me, but only one felt like mine. The knock came exactly 10 minutes later. I opened the door to find Minho standing on the porch alone, Tae-jin nowhere in sight. He looked wrecked, hair disheveled, jaw tight, eyes shadowed with exhaustion, and something that looked painfully like fear. You wanted to see me, he said, and his voice was carefully neutral. Come in. He stepped inside, and I closed the door behind him. The silence stretched between us, heavy with everything we hadn't said. I've been thinking, I started. Junha, before you say anything. Minho's control cracked just slightly. I need you to know that if you want to break the bond, I'll arrange it. Tae-jin will make sure you're safe, and I'll stay away until you've recovered. I won't fight you on this. The offer should have made me feel relieved. Instead, it just made me sad. Is that what you want? I asked. What I want doesn't matter. Yes, it does. I moved closer, watching the way his body tensed. You spent so much time trying to control everything, trying to keep me safe by making decisions for me, that you never once asked what I actually needed. His jaw tightened. What do you need? Honesty. The word came out steady, certain. I need you to stop hiding behind justifications and pack law and tell me the truth, not the version you think I want to hear, the real truth. Minho stared at me for a long moment, something raw and vulnerable flickering in his eyes. Then quietly, I'm terrified of you. The confession hit me like a physical blow. Not because you're weak, he continued, his voice rough. Because you're not. You never were. I sent you away because I was afraid that if Bloodstone got their hands on you, I'd burn down the world trying to get you back. And I knew that would destroy everything I'd built. His hands curled into fists at his sides. But then you came back, and you smelled different, and every instinct I have screamed at me that you were mine, that I'd been an idiot for letting you go. And when you went into preheat, and I had the chance to mark you, I took it, not to trap you, but because I couldn't stand the thought of anyone else touching you. He took a shaky breath. That makes me selfish, possessive, everything you accused me of being, and you have every right to hate me for it. The honesty in his voice stripped away every defense I had left. I don't hate you, I said quietly. His eyes widened. You don't? No. I stepped closer, close enough to see the way his breath hitched. I'm angry, I'm hurt, and I don't trust you yet, but I don't hate you. Then what do you want from me? I want you to stop trying to protect me by making choices for me, I said. I want you to let me be part of the decisions that affect my life, and I want you to trust that I'm strong enough to handle the truth, even when it's ugly. Minho's expression shifted, hope and disbelief warring across his features. You're staying. I'm staying. The words felt right. Terrifying, but right. Not because you marked me, and not because I'm afraid of Bloodstone, but because this is the first place I've felt like I might actually belong, and I'm not ready to give that up yet. Something in Minho's chest seemed to crack open. Junior. But, I continued, holding up a hand, if you ever lie to me again, if you ever make a decision about my life without talking to me first, I'm gone. Bond or no bond, do you understand? Yes. His voice was hoarse. I understand. Good. I let out a slow breath. Then we can figure out the rest as we go. Minho stepped closer, slow and careful, giving me time to pull away. When I didn't, his hand came up to cut my face, thumb brushing gently across my cheekbone. I don't deserve you, he said quietly. Probably not. I leaned into the touch despite myself. But you're going to try anyway. His lips curved into something almost like a smile. Every day for the rest of my life if you'll let me. The promise settled between us, fragile and new. I reached up and covered his hand with mine, and the bond hummed to life between us, warm and steady. Not perfect, not painless, but real. And maybe that was enough. Minho leaned forward slowly, giving me every opportunity to stop him. I didn't. His forehead touched mine, and we stood there in the quiet cabin, breathing in sync, his scent wrapping around me like a promise. Thank you, he whispered. For what? For giving me another chance. I closed my eyes and let myself believe, just for a moment, that maybe this could work, that maybe I could build a life here, in this strange world with these complicated people, that maybe I could finally stop running. The bond pulsed between us, stronger now, more certain, and somewhere deep inside, that restless thing that had been stirring since I woke up in this body finally settled. Not gone. Just home. Minho's hand slid down to the back of my neck, fingers brushing over the mark. The touch sent heat spiraling through me, different from before, warmer, deeper, like recognition and desire and something dangerously close to need, all tangled together. Junha, he breathed, and there was a question in the way he said my name. I opened my eyes and met his gaze, dark, intense, burning with barely restrained hunger. And in that moment, I realized something that should have terrified me. I wanted this, wanted him. Not because of the bond or the heat or the instincts screaming at me to submit, but because somewhere between the anger and the hurt and the raw honesty, I'd started to see him as more than just an alpha trying to control me. I'd started to see him as someone who was just as broken and scared and desperate to be chosen as I was. Minho, I said, and his name tasted like a beginning. He leaned closer, breath ghosting across my lips. The air between us crackled with tension, thick and electric. My heart slammed against my ribs. His thumb traced my jaw, slow and deliberate. Tell me to stop, he whispered. I should have pulled back, created distance, reminded both of us that we were supposed to be taking things slow. But I didn't want slow. I wanted real. Don't stop. I breathed. His control shattered. His mouth crashed against mine, desperate and hungry and overwhelming, and I gasped against him, hands fisting in his shirt to keep from falling. The bond exploded between us, so intense I couldn't think, couldn't breathe, couldn't do anything except feel. Heat and want, and something so much bigger than either of us. Minho's hands slid to my waist, pulling me flush against him, and somewhere in the back of my mind, I registered that this was insane, that we'd just finished fighting, that nothing was actually resolved. But I didn't care, because for the first time since I'd woken up in this nightmare, I felt alive. The kiss deepened, turned frantic, and I pulled him closer, needing more, needing everything. A low growl rumbled in his chest, primal and possessive, and my knees went weak. He backed me toward the wall, never breaking contact, and when my spine hit solid wood, the impact sent sparks racing down my nerve endings. "Yunha," he groaned against my mouth. "If we don't stop now, then don't stop." His eyes flashed gold, wolf rising to the surface, and in that split second before everything changed, I heard it. A sound outside. Distant, but distinct. Footsteps. Multiple sets. Minho heard it too. His head snapped toward the window, body going rigid. "Stay behind me," he ordered, voice dropping into alpha command. "What is it?" He didn't answer, just moved to the window and looked out, every muscle in his body coiled tight. Then, so quiet I almost didn't hear it. "Bloodstone." My blood turned to ice. "How many?" "Too many." He turned back to me, and the fear in his eyes was more terrifying than anything else. "Junha, listen to me very carefully. When I tell you to run, you run. You don't look back. You don't wait for me. You just run straight to the main compound and find Taejin. I'm not leaving you. You have to." His hands gripped my shoulders. "They're here for you. If they get you." The window exploded inward. Glass shattered across the floor. Minho shoved me behind him, a snarl ripping from his throat. 3 wolves burst through, massive and dark, eyes glowing amber. In the morning light, and standing in the doorway, human and smiling like he'd just won the lottery, was a man I'd never seen before. Tall, broad, with a scar running down the right side of his face and eyes that looked at me like I was prey. "Well," he said, voice smooth as silk. "Looks like the rumors were true." Minho's growl deepened. "Get out of my territory, Jace." "Or what?" Jace's smile widened. "You'll start a war over one little Omega?" "Yes." The word was absolute. Final. Jace's eyes flicked to me, and something hungry flickered in them. He must be something special. "He's mine," Minho said, "and you're leaving. Now." "See, that's where we have a problem." Jace took a step forward. "Because my pack just spent 6 months tracking this particular Omega. And now that we've found him, we're not leaving without him." Minho shifted, muscles coiling to attack. But before he could move, one of the wolves lunged. Not at Minho. At me. Time slowed. I saw Minho turn, saw his hand reach for me, saw the desperation in his eyes, but he was too far away. The wolf's jaws opened, fangs gleaming, and in that frozen moment before everything went dark, I heard Minho scream my name. Then pain. Then nothing. What happens when Yunha wakes up in enemy territory?